Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. The Lotus Sutra, Chapter 12, Devadatta. At that time, the Buddha addressed the Bodhisattvas, the heavenly and human beings, and the four kinds of believers, saying, Immeasurable kalpas in the past, I sought the Lotus Sutra without ever flagging. During those many kalpas, I constantly appeared as the ruler of a kingdom who made a vow to seek the unsurpassed Bodhi. His mind never wavered or turned aside, and in his desire to fulfill the 6 paramitas, he diligently distributed alms, never stinting in heart, whether the gift was elephants or horses, the 7 rare articles, countries, cities, wife, children, maidservants, menservants, or his own head, eyes, marrow, and brain, his own flesh and limbs. He did not begrudge even his own being and life. At that period, the human lifespan was immeasurably long. But for the sake of the law, this king abandoned his kingdom and throne, delegated the government to the crown prince, sounded drums, and sent out proclamations, seeking the law in the 4 directions, saying, Who can expound the great vehicle for me? To the end of my life, I will be his provider and servant. At that time, there was a seer who came to the king and said, I have a great vehicle text called the Sutra of the Lotus of the Wonderful Law. If you will never disobey me, I will expound it for you. When the king heard these words of the seer, he danced for joy. At once he accompanied the seer, providing him with whatever he needed, picking fruit, drawing water, gathering firewood, setting out meals, even offering his own body as a couch and seat, never stinting in body or mind. He served the seer in this manner for 1,000 years, all for the sake of the law, working diligently, acting as a provider and seeing to it that the seer lacked for nothing. At that time, the world-honored one, wishing to state his meaning once more, spoke in verse form, saying, I recall those departed kalpas of the past, when, in order to seek the great law, though I was the ruler of a worldly kingdom, I was not greedy to satisfy the 5 desires, but instead struck the bell crying in 4 quarters, Who possesses the great law? If he will expound and preach it for me, I will be his slave and servant. At that time, there was a seer named Asita, who came and announced to this great king, I have a subtle and wonderful law, rarely known in the world. If you will undertake religious practice, I will expound it for you. When the king heard the seer's words, his heart was filled with great joy. Immediately he accompanied the seer, providing him with whatever he needed, gathering firewood, fruit, and wild rice, presenting them at appropriate times with respect and reverence. Because the wonderful law was in his thoughts, he never flagged in body or mind. For the sake of living beings everywhere, he diligently sought the great law, taking no heed for himself, or for the gratification of the 5 desires. Therefore, the ruler of a great kingdom, through diligent seeking, was able to acquire this law, and eventually to attain Buddhahood, as I will now explain to you. The king at that time was I myself, and the seer was the man who is now named Devadatta. All because Devadatta was a good friend to me, I was able to become fully endowed with the 6 paramitas, with pity, compassion, joy, and indifference, with the 32 features, the 80 characteristics, the purple-tinged golden color, the 10 powers, the 4 kinds of fearlessness, the 4 methods of winning people, the 18 unshared properties, and the transcendental powers and the power of the way. The fact that I have attained impartial and correct enlightenment and can save living beings on a broad scale is all due to Devadatta, who was a good friend. Then the Buddha said to the 4 kinds of believers, Devadatta, after immeasurable kalpas have passed, will attain Buddhahood. He will be called Heavenly King, thus come one, worthy of offerings, of right and universal knowledge, perfect clarity and conduct, well gone, understanding the world, unexcelled worthy, trainer of people, teacher of heavenly and human beings, Buddha, world-honored one. His world will be called Heavenly Way, and at that time Heavenly King Buddha will abide in the world for 20 medium kalpas, broadly preaching the wonderful law for the sake of living beings. Living beings numerous as Ganges sands will attain the fruit of arhatship. Immeasurable numbers of living beings will conceive the desire to become Pratyeka Buddhas. Living beings numerous as Ganges sands will conceive a desire for the unsurpassed way, will gain the truth of birthlessness, and will never regress. After Heavenly King Buddha enters parinirvana, his correct law will endure in the world for 20 medium kalpas. The relics from his body will be housed in a tower built of the 7 treasures, 60 yohanas in height, and 40 yohanas in width and depth. All the heavenly and human beings will take assorted flowers, powdered incense, incense for burning, paste incense, clothing, necklaces, streamers, and banners, jeweled canopies, music, and songs of praise, and offer them with obeisance to the wonderful 7-jeweled tower. Immeasurable numbers of living beings will attain the fruits of arhatship. Numberless living beings will become enlightened as Pratyeka Buddhas, and unimaginable numbers of living beings will conceive a desire for Bodhi and will reach the level of no regression. The Buddha said to the monks, in future ages, if there are good men or good women who on hearing the Devadatta chapter of the Lotus Sutra of the Wonderful Law, believe and revere it with pure hearts, and harbor no doubts or perplexity, they will never fall into hell or the realm of hungry spirits or of beasts, but will be reborn in the presence of Buddhas of the 10 directions. And in the place where they are born, they will constantly hear this sutra. If they are born among human or heavenly beings, they will enjoy exceedingly wonderful delights. And if they are born in the presence of a Buddha, they will be born by transformation from lotus flowers. At that time, there was a bodhisattva who was among the followers of many treasures, world-honored one, from the lower region, and whose name was Wisdom Accumulated. He said to Many Treasures Buddha, "Shall we return to our homeland?" Shakyamuni Buddha said to Wisdom Accumulated, "Good man, wait a little while. There is a bodhisattva named Manjushri here, whom you should see. Debate and discuss the wonderful law with him, and then you may return to your homeland." At that time Manjushri was seated on 1,000-petaled lotus blossom, big as a carriage wheel, and the bodhisattvas who had come with him were also seated on jeweled lotus blossoms. Manjushri had emerged in a natural manner from the palace of the Dragon King Sagara in the great ocean, and was suspended in the air. Proceeding to Holy Eagle Peak, he descended from the lotus blossom, and having entered the presence of the Buddhas, bowed his head and paid obeisance to the feet of the world-honored one. When he had concluded these gestures of respect, he went to where Wisdom Accumulated was, and exchanged greetings with him, and then retired and sat at one side. Bodhisattva Wisdom Accumulated questioned Manjushri, saying, "When you went to the palace of the Dragon King, how many living beings did you convert?" Manjushri replied,
"The number is immeasurable, incapable of calculation, The mouth cannot express it. The mind cannot fathom it. Wait a moment, and there will be proof.
Before he had finished speaking, countless bodhisattvas seated on jeweled lotus blossoms emerged from the ocean and proceeded to Holy Eagle Peak, where they remained suspended in the air. These bodhisattvas had all been converted and saved by Manjushri. They had carried out all the bodhisattva practices, and all discussed and expounded the 6 paramitas with one another. Those who had originally been voice hearers expounded the practices of the voice hearer when they were in the air, but now all were practicing the great vehicle principle of emptiness. Manjushri said to wisdom accumulated,
The work of teaching and converting carried out in the ocean was as you can see.
At that time, Bodhisattva wisdom accumulated recited these verses of praise. Of great wisdom and virtue, brave and stalwart, you have converted and saved immeasurable beings. Now those in this great assembly, as well as I myself, have all seen them. You expound the principle of the true entity, open up the law of the single vehicle, broadly guiding the many beings, causing them quickly to attain Bodhi. Manjushri said,
When I was in the ocean, I constantly expounded the Lotus Sutra of the wonderful law alone.
Bodhisattva, wisdom accumulated, questioned Manjushri, saying, This sutra is very profound, subtle, and wonderful, a treasure among sutras, a rarity in the world. Are there perhaps any living beings who, by earnestly and diligently practicing this sutra, have been able to attain Buddhahood quickly? Manjushri replied,
Her wisdom has keen roots, and she is good at understanding the root activities and deeds of living beings. She has mastered the Dharanis, has been able to accept and embrace all the storehouse of profound secrets preached by the Buddhas, has entered deep into meditation, thoroughly grasped the doctrines, and in the space of an instant conceived the desire for Bodhi and reached the level of no regression. Her eloquence knows no hindrance, and she thinks of living beings with compassion, as though they were her own children. She is fully endowed with blessings, and when it comes to conceiving in mind and expounding by mouth, she is subtle, wonderful, comprehensive, and great. Kind, compassionate, benevolent, yielding, she is gentle and refined in will, capable of attaining Bodhi.
Bodhisattva wisdom accumulated said, When I observe Shakyamuni thus come one, I see that for immeasurable kalpas he carried out harsh and difficult practices, accumulating merit, piling up virtue, seeking the way of the Bodhisattva without ever resting. I observe that throughout the 1,000,000,000-fold world, there is not a single spot, teeny as a mustard seed, where this Bodhisattva failed to sacrifice body and life for the sake of living beings. Only after he had done that was he able to complete the Bodhi way. I cannot believe that this girl, in the space of an instant, could actually achieve correct enlightenment. Before his words had come to an end, the Dragon King's daughter suddenly appeared before the Buddha, bowed her head in obeisance, and then retired to one side, reciting these verses of praise. He profoundly understands the signs of guilt and good fortune, and illuminates the 10 directions everywhere. His subtle, wonderful, pure Dharma body is endowed with the 32 features and 80 characteristics adorn his Dharma body. Heavenly and human beings gaze up in awe. Dragons and spirits all pay honor and respect. Among all living beings, none who do not hold him in reverence. And having heard his teaching, I have attained Bodhi. The Buddha alone can bear witness to this. I unfold the doctrines of the great vehicle to rescue beings from suffering. At that time, Shariputra said to the dragon girl, You suppose that in this short time you have been able to attain the unsurpassed way. But this is difficult to believe. Why? Because a woman's body is soiled and defiled, not a vessel for the law. How could you attain the unsurpassed Bodhi? The road to Buddhahood is long and far-stretching. Only after one has spent immeasurable kalpas pursuing austerities, accumulating deeds, practicing all kinds of paramitas, can one finally achieve success. Moreover, a woman is subject to the 5 obstacles. First, she cannot become a Brahma heavenly king. Second, she cannot become the king Chakra. Third, she cannot become a devil king. Fourth, she cannot become a wheel-turning sage king. Fifth, she cannot become a Buddha. How then could a woman like you be able to attain Buddhahood so quickly? At that time, the dragon girl had a precious jewel, worth as much as the 1,000,000,000-fold world, which she presented to the Buddha. The Buddha immediately accepted it. The dragon girl said to Bodhisattva wisdom accumulated, and to the Venerable One, Shariputra,
I presented the precious jewel, and the world-honored one accepted it. Was that not quickly done?
They replied, very quickly. The girl said,
Employ your supernatural powers and watch me attain Buddhahood. It will be even quicker than that.
At that time, the members of the assembly all saw the dragon girl, in the space of an instant, change into a man and carry out all the practices of a bodhisattva, immediately proceeding to the spotless world of the south, taking a seat on a jeweled lotus, and attaining impartial and correct enlightenment. With the 32 features and the 80 characteristics, he expounded the wonderful law for all living beings everywhere in the 10 directions. At that time, in the Saha world, the bodhisattvas, voice hearers, gods, dragons, and others of the 80 kinds of guardians, human and non-human beings, all from a distance, saw the dragon girl become a Buddha, and preached the law to all the human and heavenly beings in the assembly at that time. Their hearts were filled with great joy, and all from a distance paid reverent obeisance. Immeasurable living beings, hearing the law, understood it, and were able to reach the level of no regression. Immeasurable living beings received prophecies that they would gain the way. The spotless world quaked and trembled in 6 different ways. 3,000 living beings of the Saha world remained on the level of no regression. 3,000 living beings conceived a desire for Bodhi and received prophecies of enlightenment. Bodhisattva wisdom accumulated. Shariputra and all the other members of the assembly silently believed and accepted these things.